Hello, I'm David Breeden. I'm the Senior Minister at First Unitarian Society in Minneapolis. Today's subject is going to be how to stay vital after 70, and the guest today is Bill Weir. Bill, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, I'm 80 and feel that I'm a lot younger because of the vitality that I have managed to keep. It's been work at trying to maintain that vitality.
All right, well, got to tell us your secret.
Well, one of them is the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at the University of Minnesota. OLLI, as we call it, is really a health club for the mind. Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping that you'll be meeting the executive director here sometime in the coming months.
Okay.
She is a marvel at putting together 300 courses a year.
So the program has 300 courses.
Yes.
Each year, okay.
I do a couple of them. I've just finished one on this, I believe. Mm-hmm. 6 weeks, 90 minutes a week, and we're returning there. This is irrelevant, perhaps to those that after the spring of 2014, but. I'm doing The Ageless Spirit once again.
Okay.
A book that was put together by a young woman who grew up right in this neighborhood, St. Louis Park, Connie Goldman. She interviewed people aged 70 and above about how they maintain their vitality.
Okay.
All and right. It's a star-studded list of people. I've learned a few things by teaching this or leading this course. I've learned a lot from my fellow course mates.
Okay, all right. So what's the number one secret then?
Oh, the number one secret is courage.
Okay, courage.
Courage to cope with your frailties.
Okay, so we all know and are taught to dread the fact that things begin to break down in the body after a certain age, and so the way to face that fact then is courage.
Don't dread it.
Go to the doctor.
Don't be a wimp.
Yeah.
I just had this shoulder replaced less than 10 days ago, and I'm glad I did, rather than enduring the pain that detracted from my ability to concentrate and listen to other people.
Mm-hmm. So one can choose between slowly contracting and not using your arm anymore, or staying out there and having courage.
Have courage to get things repaired, rather than just go on in pain.
Okay.
And this OLLI program includes some people who are MDs and others in healthcare specialties who can help people think about how to cope.
All right. Okay. Who are some of the people in the book? And do you have one you remember specifically as being?
Well, there's so many but Studs Terkel, some of you will remember him on radio interviewing people. Phyllis Diller, Hugh Downs, along on NBC was it? And Burl Ives, the singer, and Norman Cousins, Saturday Evening. What was it? Saturday Evening. His publication.
Oh, I can't remember, but he's the laughter is the best medicine guy, right?
Yeah. For 35 years, Norman Cousins served as editor of Saturday Review.
Okay, Saturday Review.
But he was best known as the man who laughed himself to health.
All right. Yay.
So these are inspiring pages here, which ends up, and as the ancients have said, in and out of the Bible, choose life.
Okay, choose life. Don't choose to just withdraw and
Yeah.
fade away, huh?
And you see it in your ministry too, I'm sure. People who sometimes withdraw, and others that are working on getting back.
Well, the number one thing I see is intellectual curiosity. That is that people who continue to use their brains. We have people in their 80s at First Unitarian Society who are studying Spanish for the first time, for
Really?
example, learning new languages, learning something that they've never learned before, calculus, or building on something that has always intrigued them, like becoming a painter. And
Yes.
such as that. And yes, I think that those people are certainly more vital. They feel better. They don't walk around quite as doubled over with the cane sort of thing as others.
Well, even those that may be doubled over with the cane can still have a vitality in life. The introduction by Connie Goldman's co-author, what we can control is the way we choose to deal with our infirmities and the changes that come with age. And this is where courage and perhaps some artful trickery works wonders.
Okay, all right. Well, and that's certainly taken out of the Buddha's playbook, that if you decide on something, you can execute that plan. And if you're going to stay upbeat and have the courage,
So this is just one course out of 300. I've just finished a course on This I Believe.
Okay.
And perhaps you are familiar with the This I Believe website.
I am very familiar with the This I Believe website. I think it was started, the concept was started in the 1950s, I believe.
You're right.
And then it was revived, and it's a wonderful, wonderful way to think. I've written one, and the rules, the kind of guidelines are on the website.
Yeah.
And
500 words or less.
500 words or less. Stay positive.
And build from an experience. Yeah, and that was the fun for most of these course members is, now what experience in my life has led to my behavior, my valuing certain things.
Right.
And so they learned a lot in writing this, I believe.
Well, it's certainly a way of focusing, isn't it? I mean, that's what it was doing for me anyway, is what are my deepest values? What have I stuck to over time? And what has kept me vital over time, fed me through thick and thin, and bereavement, etc.
And recovering. It's so important to have that, to go through the grief work. It seems one woman in one of these courses had not gone through the grief work. She tried to avoid it, and it does take time to get over something, but it helps to build that ageless spirit in advance.
Right. So you don't try to avoid life's pitfalls, and
you got to face up to them. And learn to deal with pain. But dealing with pain frequently can, in our time, be dealt with by getting the right kind of doctor.
That's right. Yeah.
But I'm sorry, I may give the impression that Ollie is all about this. It's a much broader array of courses. Many recently retired professors are giving another course. This time I don't have to grade papers.
There you go.
No.
Okay. Well, so what are some others that you've taught?
Oh, I tackled a very big topic, fixing Congress.
Oh, well, they didn't listen, I don't think. But
well, we managed to come up with some things that we wrote to our congressman about.
Okay.
And then there was another one about restoring civility in civil discourse.
Okay.
And what do we mean? What is it that we're asking of the people that are mucking up civil discourse? How do we recognize civility? And
Okay.
we found some very good writers on that that we learned from.
Interesting. Well, I mean, democracy is all about civility, finally, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, it doesn't work if people aren't speaking, because it's supposed to be about some kind of halfway in between, isn't it? So.
Yeah. I just saw a play at the Guthrie Theater, which was an amazing example of good civility. Freud's last session
Okay.
with his invited guest, C.S. Lewis.
Really?
And what the Freud, near the end of his life, and C.S. Lewis as a young professor, a marvelous interaction. And I may even offer a course on this particular play.
Ah, okay.
Uh,
All
be-
right.
Because it struck me so well as helping people see what was Christianity, in the words of C.S. Lewis, and atheism in Freud, and that brief encounter, imagined encounter, changed Freud a little bit. He could, in the end, enjoy that music that he had not learned how to enjoy before.
Well, I mean, Freud famously dismisses religion in his writing, at least
Yes.
in his early writing, and saying it's simply wish fulfillment. And so he learns something new about that in this particular play.
In this imaginative play, yes, that was so well produced at the Guthrie, up at the Black Box Theater.
Okay, the
you know,
experimental one.
Dowling studio, yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, and that too then is about changing your mind in old age.
Yes.
Staying alive enough to be open to new possibilities or new ways of thinking. And,
That's why, one of the reasons why I'm thinking about offering it as part of a course.
well, I have to admit, when I was a young person, I didn't particularly want to talk to older people because I felt like they had already made up their mind anyway, and so why talk to them, right?
Really?
Yes.
But now,
But I didn't see them as vital people. But I will tell you also that the first thing I fell in love with about Unitarian Universalist congregations, I went when I was 22, and I discovered old people. Of course, they were probably 50 at that, but I thought as old people who were actually interested in things.
Yes.
And that's the first time I had seen old people actually being interested in the world. Taking care of pets, no-kill animal shelters, the environment, et cetera, et cetera.
Many people I see now working on climate change, a lot of gray hairs there that represent the wisdom that they've gathered through the decades.
All right. Well, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about this kind of third age that we seem to have now. After retirement, many people have a healthy several years after they retire.
Decades.
And what to do with that time to be helping society and helping themselves stay vital. And so I guess we live in a brave new world of that, because we now certainly have people living into their 80s and 90s perfectly healthy.
Yeah. Well, there are a couple of other things that I've learned besides what's in this book. One was at the age of 40, I decided I wanted to live to at least 80. And now I'm there.
All right. Well.
But I didn't stop at that. Every birthday, I added a couple more years until I got to 65, and I decided 130 is enough.
That might be plenty. That might be plenty.
But, and I kid around about with my doctor and so others about having another 50 years to go, and you know that's one reason why I worked on getting that new shoulder.
Well, you got a brand new shoulder, so it would last another till you're 130, wouldn't it? So.
I bet it would. So, I want to particularly thank some of the venues that host OLLI programs. There's several Unitarian Universalist congregations that host these courses, and perhaps yours will soon.
Love it.
But in Golden Valley, Calvary Church is one that I've conducted a course in, and this is a particularly desirable place, the Walker Place. The chapel could hold a good percentage of the OLLI members, and they give us coffee and tea and bottled water and oranges and apples and cookies of several
All
kinds.
right.
So now I'm wondering what may be the indications of what your particular church might like to sponsor, your society,
Well,
to host.
we would certainly be open to just about anything. Of course, as you've already mentioned, our folks are certainly interested in social justice issues, and I
Yes.
think you would get quite an audience if you were to talk about what we could do about climate change, for example. That's one of the burning issues in our time.
And I bet the city might grant permits for a little longer period of parking.
We
in that
have a
area.
little bit of a parking problem in our church.
And
yes,
so
it's
that
urban.
all the course members could find a parking space, or go in the ramp down just below by the Walker Arts Center.
Yeah, it's always the challenge with an urban congregation is
Yes.
parking is certainly at a premium. We don't have an above ground parking ramp after all. So
Yeah. Well, have you had an experience of being in something like OLLI in the past?
you know, I have. So I used to be an English professor, and so I was often asked to come, especially guest speak, but sometimes hold courses. Short courses for people. I'm a creative writer, and so a lot of people after they retire are interested in, some exploring poetry and that kind of thing that they've never done before, and then many people are interested in writing memoirs as a way to kind of look back at their lives a little bit.
Yes.
And so I've taught those kind of courses over time.
And memoirs is one of the popular repeated courses in OLLI.
Yeah, well, people write them for different reasons. Some people write them just for their kids, so that their kids will kind of see where they were. It's
Yes.
Sometimes we don't know about our parents or grandparents. We just see them as these people who maybe bake cookies or something, and not as someone who did this and that over time. So,
Yeah.
you know.
So maybe we can hope that you will have time to teach a memoirs or course, or
I would-
creative writing. Or,
I would always be glad to do that. Absolutely.
and you have that nice room there, the
Dietrich Room.
yeah, and I got that's named for John Dietrich.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when was he? What was he?
He was the
famous-
lead. He was the lead minister at First Unitarian Society from 1916 through the 1930s, and he was the person who invented the term religious humanism.
Really?
Absolutely, and so First Unitarian Society is the birthplace of religious humanism. John Dietrich grew up a conventional Christian. became a conventionally Christian minister, and then began to read some science and begin to start thinking outside the box. His great insight was that people still want community, even if they no longer believe in some of these religious trappings.
Yes.
And so for hymns, it's much more about nature and social justice and those kinds of things.
Hymns don't
instead of praise.
necessarily have theological language in them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he started reading poetry by various people, even contemporary poets, instead of Scripture.
Yes, I've heard a lot of psalms
Yep,
in
yep.
Christian services,
Yep,
but
yep.
but I can see that there's much poetry that would
Yep.
be a nice voice to bring in in connection with a talk.
Yep. I mean, many people are still fascinated or confused that we do contemporary literature for the readings, the scripture readings in Unitarian Universalist congregations, but we do.
Yes. Well,
Absolutely.
maybe you're sort of a health club for the mind also.
We try to be. We try to be. And again, as I said, that was the first thing that attracted me about Unitarian Universalism, was that the people were clearly staying alive in their minds after I thought everyone had already become concrete and unable to change their minds in the future. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Do you have a favorite quote from this book that might inspire someone? And
let's see. Is the founder of Elder Hostel here, and Stanley Kunitz. Yes.
Yes. Poet. Speaking of poets.
Yes, Stanley Kunitz is considered our senior statesman of poetry. His hard-earned literary reputation is now secure and unquestioned. Those familiar with his poetry accord him high praise. He's tough in the sense of being a survivor of tough times, wistful, serene, and proud of having lived a life in service of art. In conversation, he is eloquent and intense, yet never without a twinkle in his eye. Don't you wish that were being said of you at that age?
Absolutely. There you go.
We talked in his bookline New York apartment, a place abundant with greenery and sprinkled with antique treasures acquired for modest sums a half-century ago. That's the external world of Stanley Kunitz. His internal world, despite his 86 years, continues to be the world of poetry. Being an older artist has not diminished his excitement for his work. His desire to write is as intense and immediate as when he was young. So Stanley Kunitz, in the interview, said this, which I will has been transformed into a short essay. I used to fantasize a good deal about what would happen to me in my old age. The fantasy that stayed with me was that in my old age, I would be a gardener on a great estate. And I would have a little lodge and solitude, and I would work on the earth. Of course, I've been a passionate gardener all my life, so this would have been a very good solution for my problems. And that's probably what would have happened had I not managed to survive as a writer.
Yeah. Well, and he's a fascinating writer in that his best work was late in life. That's one of the things I find fascinating about him. There is this cliche that the young bohemian writers are the only ones who have great ideas, but he continued to get better and better all through his life.
Yeah. Well, he says here, in a curious way, I think that with age comes a diminishing of barriers.
Okay.
You're less fenced in. And you can take greater risks at a certain point because you don't care anymore. You've tested yourself, you know what you can do, You know better than anyone else. And who's to stop you from daring to do something that is not expected from you?
There you have it. There you have it.
It's funny, but death always seemed to me more frightful when I was 20 than it does now. It paralyzed me more at that age. And the reason is that now you know you've done what you could, done it as well as you could, and there's a sense of maturation, a sense to a degree of fulfillment. Not that one is ever completely fulfilled, but to a degree, at least to a degree, you've done what you expected of yourself. You've learned through the cycles of nature, through the seasons and the stars, the tides, that there's a time for everything, and there's a time to go too. And as you age, there is perhaps a greater acceptance of this whole phenomenon of dying as well as of living. And then there's that other aspect of your age. Death itself becomes implicit in your voice. It becomes your theme in an intimate way, just as sexual love, let's say, became your intense theme in your 20s. So you're exploring new territory, and there's that close embrace between your life and your death that you never had before. That does something to your poetry. Inevitably, it has to. This poem I wrote recently, just after the death of a friend, a neighbor on Cape Cod, is called The Long Boat. I wonder, would you care to read it? Ron?
Okay, yes, sure. When his boat snapped loose from its moorings, under the squeaking of the gulls, he tried at first to wave to his dear ones on shore. But in the rolling fog, they had already lost their faces. Too tired even to choose between jumping and calling, somehow he felt absolved and free of his burdens, those mottos stamped on his name tag, conscience, ambition, and all that caring. He was content to lie down with the family ghosts in the slop of his cradle, buffeted by the storm, endlessly drifting. Peace, peace, to be rocked by the infinite, as if it didn't matter which way was home, as if it didn't know he loved the earth so much, he wanted to stay forever.
Beautiful
A
reading.
lovely poem about aging.
Yes.
Absolutely. Coming unmoored from all of those responsibilities and suddenly feeling a part of the world and then the infinite.
Yes. And his closing paragraph here, above all, what I feel right now is the beautiful richness of life. How lucky I was to be born. Just think, if I hadn't been born, I'd never have been able to share with you this moment. Ever experienced not only the joys, but the griefs. Even though things sometimes went wrong, terribly wrong, looking back on life, I feel great joy about being alive. Of all the gifts that one could imagine, I cannot think of a greater one than life itself.
Yeah, that's a pretty good summary of
Good
it
words
all.
to end on.
Very good summary of how to look at life and remain vital, isn't it?
Yes.
Great. Good to talk to you today, Bill Weir. And I'm David Breeden, the Senior Minister at First Unitarian Society. See you next time.